We begin with breaking news from River Oaks, where a triple murder-suicide investigation is underway. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Keith Garvin.
And I'm Stefania Jimenez. Houston police are saying that a family, 2 adults and 2 kids, were found dead at a home near Kingston and Avalon Place. KPRC 2 News reporter Corley Peel joins us live from that scene, where she spoke with Houston police with the heartbreaking discovery that was made. Corley.
Stephania and Keith, Houston police have been out here for several hours, but they say a babysitter and a family member called 911 after not hearing from the family since last night. And when officers arrived, they found all 4 family members dead inside a home. And you can see that there is still a large crime scene out here this evening on Kingston Street.
On a Monday afternoon in May 2026, a babysitter drove to a Houston elementary school to pick up 2 children. Neither child had been there all day. She called the house. No answer. She called again. The line rang out. She called a 3rd time. Nothing. So she called 911. Houston Police Department officers arrived at a home on Kingston Street in River Oaks, one of the most affluent neighborhoods in the entire country, at approximately 5:26 in the evening. They pushed open the front door and walked inside. 4 people were in that house. All 4 were dead. Here is the detail that will stay with you through this entire story. The man investigators would name as responsible for what happened inside that home had dinner plans with friends that same evening. Those friends were already at the table when police were making that discovery. They were waiting for him, checking their phones, probably assuming traffic. He never showed up. He never called. He simply never came. This is Viral Case Files. If you are new here, subscribe right now. This channel covers true crime cases with verified facts, full depth, and no shortcuts. Hit that bell so you never miss a new case. And drop in the comments before you do anything else. Where in the world are you watching from? I read every single one. This is the story of Thy Mai Mitchell, a woman her own industry called a ray of light. A woman who built something extraordinary in Houston, Texas, who showed up every single day with more energy than the room could hold, and who was found dead in her own home, alongside her 2 children on a Monday evening in May 2026, in a case that sent shockwaves through an entire city and left the people who loved her with questions that still do not have official answers. This is what we know. This is what the evidence shows. And this is the full story. To understand the full weight of this case, you need to understand who Thy Mai Mitchell actually was, not the headline version, not the social media profile, but the complete picture of a woman who built her life with intention from the very beginning. Thy Mai was 39 years old. She was born in Chicago but raised in Houston, and Houston shaped everything about who she became. She grew up as a first-generation Vietnamese American. Her father, Thy Mai, was a Vietnamese immigrant who built a career at NASA, one of the most technically demanding institutions in the world. Her mother and grandmother ran a small Vietnamese restaurant in Houston, and from the time Thy was a young girl, she spent her weekends working in that restaurant. Not sitting at a table eating, working. Watching her mother and grandmother put food in front of people and make them feel at home. She was absorbing what hospitality actually meant before she ever had a word for it. When it came time for university, Thy enrolled at the University of Houston and pursued a degree in consumer science and merchandising. What is worth noting is that she was not a student figuring out her future while studying. She was already working in higher-end retail stores, including Tootsie's and Tiffany and Company, building professional experience in real time. She was not waiting to graduate to start. She started before she finished. At UH, she met a recruiter from Target on campus during a chance conversation. She was not even planning to interview, but they connected. And after graduation, she joined Target's management program, overseeing more than 50 employees at a young age in a high-revenue retail environment. She credited UH directly for opening that door. From Target, she moved into human resources, joining Hilton and eventually holding HR leadership roles at 3 Fortune 500 companies across hospitality and retail. 2 industries, both of which she understood from the inside out. One from her family restaurant in Houston, one from the corporate leadership roles she had built herself. Penn State University awarded her a master's degree in human resources and employment relations. By the time she was running restaurants, she had already spent years understanding how large organizations function, how people operate under pressure, and how to lead teams through the kind of daily grind that breaks people who are not prepared for it. In 2023, she launched Foreign Fair, a women's travel fashion brand. The concept was specific and practical. Clothing designed for women who travel, wrinkle-resistant, easy to pack, stylish without being impractical. Her close friend Angelique Gildas styled the brand alongside her. Foreign Fair was not a side project or a vanity exercise. It was a natural extension of the same philosophy that ran through every business Thy built, that the world is worth experiencing, and everything you carry with you should make that easier. By 2025, the Texas Restaurant Association's Greater Houston chapter had invited Thy onto their board. Craig Howard, president of the Houston chapter, was direct about why. He said, "We saw such a bright star with Thy that we asked her to serve on our board. We knew she would inject some new ideas." That same year, her peers voted her Greater Houston Restaurateur of the Year. Not a committee, not an appointed recognition, a peer vote. The people working alongside her in the same industry chose her. Emily Williams Knight, the president and CEO of the Texas Restaurant Association, said publicly after her death, "To say that Thy will be missed is an understatement. We will remember Thy as a ray of light who inspired everyone around her." In February 2026, just 2 months before her death, Thy appeared on Houston Matters, a public radio program to talk about the financial challenges facing the restaurant industry. She spoke calmly, with forward focus. She said they wanted their guests to feel like they were getting away when they left their homes, rather than just grabbing a utility meal. She was talking about the future of the business. She was building. She was planning. She was publicly optimistic about where things were going. The people who knew Thy described her in terms that were strikingly consistent. Eric Sandler, city editor at Culture Map Houston, said she was never happier than when she was helping other people celebrate, that Traveler's Table and Traveler's Cart had become destinations particularly for birthday celebrations and group gatherings, and that meant the world to her. Chef Nikki Tran said Thy had once given her a completely open runway to run a multi-day pop-up at Traveler's Cart with no restrictions and no conditions. No interference, just trust and space. Tran had also been looking forward to cooking a dish Thy had mentioned missing, a broken rice dish called the Saigon Sunrise that Tran used to make. She had been planning to cook it for her again. She never got the chance. Ally Jarrett, a close friend, said simply, "She was always thinking about other people." Angelique Gildas said she elevated everyone around her without ever applying pressure, that you just found yourself doing your best work when she was in the room. Amber Farrell Steele, the founder of Timeless Spirits and Drinks, remembered a gift card swap Thy had organized among a women's business owners group. Each member gave gift cards to the others, who then shared them with their employees for the holidays. It was Thy's idea, her initiative, her thoughtfulness. The Houston Chronicle, collectively across multiple reporters who covered her career, described her as a connector, a little ball of energy, an extrovert who did not know a stranger. Her friend Ty Adams said simply, "Always ready to help, very giving." Sandy Nguyen, co-owner of Saigon Hustle and Sunday Press, called her a force never defined by her petite frame, someone who commanded respect with her presence, her conviction, and her voice. A true leader who moved with vision and purpose, unafraid to speak the truth while lifting those around her. When Traveler's Cart finished construction on Montrose Boulevard, Thy walked outside and did cartwheels in the street, in front of the building. That is who she was. There is one thing about Thy's final months that matters to this story, and that has not received enough attention in the public coverage of this case. In February 2026, the same month she was on Houston radio talking about the restaurant industry's future, Thy's sister Thy Mai lost her husband. Suddenly, doctors believed he died from a ruptured brain aneurysm. Thy was simultaneously running 2 restaurants, managing a fashion brand, serving on a board, planning for the World Cup, and quietly holding her grieving sister together through a devastating loss. She carried all of that without putting it on public display. On the last Sunday of her life, May 3, 2026, Thy took her daughter Maya shopping for a wedding dress for Thy Mai's upcoming wedding in Boston. She posted it to Instagram, Maya picking her dress, making sure her mother was taken care of too. looking after each other in a fitting room in Houston on a Sunday afternoon. That was Sunday. By Monday evening, the babysitter was calling 911. Matthew Mitchell was 52 years old. His life, on paper, reads like the biography of a man who was always moving towards something, accumulating experiences, building expertise, then walking away from it entirely and starting over in a different world. He earned his bachelor's degree from Emory University, one of the top private research universities in the United States. From there he went further. He studied in France, in Italy, and then at Oxford University in England. Oxford is not a credential that gets mentioned casually. It is one of the oldest and most academically rigorous institutions on the planet. Matthew Mitchell sat in those classrooms. After Oxford, he did not return to a desk job. He worked as a journalist and writer in London, in Paris, and in New York City. 3 cities. 3 distinct professional environments. He was moving through the world before he settled into any single career, building a frame of reference that most people never get. He eventually returned to Texas and enrolled at Rice University's Jesse H. Jones School of Business, one of the most respected business programs in the country. He entered the pharmaceutical industry and built a career that spanned more than 14 years. He became president and CEO of Texas Center for Drug Development, Inc., a clinical research organization based in Texas. His father, Dr. Jerry Mitchell, was a professor at Baylor College of Medicine. Matthew served as vice president under his father before eventually stepping into the CEO role himself. For more than a decade, that was his world. It is worth pausing on what that world actually looks like from the inside, because it matters to this story in ways that will become clearer as we go. Pharmaceutical clinical research is one of the most controlled professional environments that exists. Every decision is documented. Every outcome is measured. Processes are designed to eliminate unpredictability. When something deviates from the expected result, that deviation is identified, recorded, and corrected. There is a paper trail for everything. Every day has structure. Every project has defined parameters. It is a world that rewards precision and penalizes ambiguity. Matthew Mitchell spent 14 years in that world. He thrived in it. That is the professional foundation on which everything that came after was built. And then he walked away. He enrolled at the Art Institute of Houston and earned an associate's degree in culinary arts. He did not go straight from the pharmaceutical boardroom to managing a restaurant. He went back to the bottom. He worked in Houston restaurant kitchens, not overseeing, not managing, not consulting, working. Learning the floor, the kitchen, the rhythm and reality of running a professional restaurant from the ground up. By 2019, he and Thy were ready to open Traveler's Table together. Matthew named every single cocktail on both restaurant menus personally. That detail matters. It tells you he was engaged, invested, and paying attention to every element of what they were building. Stanton Bundy, who served as head chef of Traveler's Table and who became nationally known when he competed on and won an episode of Beat Bobby Flay on Food Network, spent 5 years working alongside Matthew in close professional quarters. After the tragedy, Bundy spoke to TMZ. He said he had spent 5 years in that kitchen working next to Matthew and had only ever seen him and Thy in a minor marital spat, nothing that escalated, nothing that turned physical. He called Matthew a great friend. He said Matthew loved his children deeply. After learning what happened, Bundy told TMZ he was questioning everything, including his faith. He said he could not begin to imagine what could have driven Matthew to something so devastating. Think about what that means. 5 years of daily proximity in a high-pressure kitchen environment, 5 years of close professional contact, and the man who spent all that time next to Matthew Mitchell had nothing, not a single moment he could point to in hindsight and identify as a warning sign. The most analytically significant detail about Matthew Mitchell in the context of this investigation is one that is easy to mention but important to sit with. Matthew had no social media presence of any kind, not a minimal footprint, none. Thy had joked about this publicly. She said that when they first met in 2010, she was convinced he was either a con artist or a man living a double life, because who in 2010 had zero social media? He simply did not. He preferred books and newspapers. He kept his interior life entirely to himself. In the context of this case, that matters in a very specific way. A man who leaves no digital emotional record is a man whose psychological state, his fears, his pressures, his state of mind in the days leading up to May 4th, is almost entirely invisible to outside examination. His colleagues knew his professional self. What he was carrying privately is a question the available public record cannot answer. 10 days before HPD arrived at Kingston Street, Thy posted a video to Instagram of the two of them laughing together. She joked about growing old. Matthew was in the frame, smiling. Hundreds of strangers who had never met this family left comments. They were laughing at something. The world looked fine. That is the last verified public image of Matthew and Thy Mitchell together. And on the same Monday evening that Houston police were inside that house on Kingston Street, a group of Matthew's friends were sitting at a restaurant waiting for him. He had ordinary dinner plans. Normal Monday evening plans with people who cared about him. They were at the table, checking the time, wondering where he was. He never arrived. They met in 2010, and from the very first interaction, the story of Thy and Matthew Mitchell had a texture to it that the people who knew them always remembered. Their first unofficial date happened at 2:00 in the morning at a place called House of Pies in Houston. It was not a planned, formal, polished first impression. It was 2 a.m., and they were at a diner. Thy ordered a chicken fried steak. Matthew later admitted he quietly judged her for that. He said nothing. He just filed it away privately, the way private people do, and kept showing up. Their first official date was at Backstreet Cafe, a Houston institution known for its commitment to local ingredients and its warm, neighborhood restaurant atmosphere. But the moment Thy said she knew, the moment that settled it for her, was not a candlelit dinner or a grand gesture. It was the moment Matthew showed up to a large Vietnamese family gathering and went completely, enthusiastically all in on every dish she loved. No hesitation, no awkwardness, no performance of trying to fit in. He was fully present, fully himself, genuinely engaged with the food and the people. Thy said that was the moment. For a woman who had grown up in a Vietnamese restaurant family, who had spent her childhood in that specific world of food as connection, the man who walked into that gathering and ate with that kind of openness and joy was already someone she could trust. They married by the sea in Porto Heli, Greece. A decade later, they took an anniversary trip to St. Kitts in the Caribbean. Thy wrote about it publicly. She said a decade in, it still felt like the beginning. 10 days before she died, she posted that laughing video. She wrote that he believed they would grow old together. She joked about her Vietnamese genes, meaning she would outlast him. She was teasing him in public, the way people do when they are comfortable, when the relationship is real, when the years have added depth rather than distance. Hundreds of people commented on that post. People who had never met them smiled at their phones. That is the kind of relationship it looked like from the outside. And every person who knew them in person described it the same way. They opened Traveler's Table in Houston's Montrose neighborhood in 2019. The concept was built directly from their lives together, a menu constructed from their actual travels, dishes drawn from Australia, Japan, Korea, Nigeria, Thailand, India, and Singapore, all served under one roof. Not a fusion concept. Individual dishes from individual places, made by people who had been to those places and understood what those meals were supposed to taste like. It was a specific vision with a specific reason behind it, and Houston noticed immediately. In 2021, Guy Fieri's production team came to Houston. Traveler's Table was featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives on Food Network. That level of national exposure changes the arc of a restaurant. It brings in diners from outside the immediate neighborhood, creates a searchable public record, and signals to the broader industry that something real is happening in that space. In 2023, head chef Stanton Bundy competed on Beat Bobby Flay on Food Network and won. The restaurant was now attached to two separate nationally televised moments. In July 2025, Chef Miguel Torres appeared on Guy's Grocery Games, adding a third. By 2025, Yelp had ranked Traveler's Table number 2 on their list of the best places to eat in all of Houston. Number 2, in a city that takes its food more seriously than almost anywhere else in the country. They did not stop there. In October 2024, they opened Traveler's Cart at 1401 Montrose Boulevard, a fast casual global street food concept, a more accessible, higher volume version of the same philosophy that drove Traveler's Table. That expansion was funded by a $235 million capital raise, 2 operating restaurants. Foreign Fare, the fashion brand. and a hospitality umbrella they called Travelers Collective, encompassing all of it under a single identity. In 2025, the Greater Houston chapter of the Texas Restaurant Association named them Restaurateurs of the Year. Their PR firm, South House PR, described Thy as a devoted mother and businesswoman, and said that if there was one thing about Thy, it was that she was always on her own journey, always looking for the next adventure. Craig Howard, the Houston chapter president, confirmed that just days before May 4th, Thy had hosted the Texas Restaurant Association board meeting at Travelers Table. 50 restaurateurs attended. His words: "Great operation, wonderful staff, great food." Ryan Brown served as director of operations across both restaurants. He was the operational infrastructure that kept both businesses running day to day, and the man who would continue running them through the unimaginable days that came after May 4th. Weeks before that date, Thy and Matthew were actively developing a new menu for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, with Houston designated as one of the host cities. There were plans. There was momentum. There was a clear and visible future that every person around them could see. If you are watching this and you are not yet subscribed to Viral Case Files, this is the moment. What you have just heard is a fully built, fully documented picture of two people and everything they created together. What comes next is what happened when that picture broke. Subscribe now. Hit the bell. You do not want to lose track of this story. Monday, May 4th, 2026. The children's babysitter drove to Maya and Max's school that morning to pick them up. When she arrived, she was told that neither child had come to school that day. Maya Mitchell, 8 years old, and Maxwell Mitchell, 4 years old, had not shown up. The babysitter began calling the Mitchell home. No one answered. She called again. Nothing. She kept trying. After repeated unanswered calls, Thy's sister Thy Mai contacted 911 and requested a welfare check at the family's residence at 2113 Kingston Street in the River Oaks area of Houston. This sequence of events was later confirmed directly by the Mitchell family in their official statement issued on May 20, 2026. The family also confirmed that no relative, no friend, and no individual of any kind entered that home before law enforcement arrived. The scene was untouched when police got there. Houston Police Department officers arrived at approximately 5:2006 in the evening. They entered the residence at 2113 Kingston Street and found 4 members of the Mitchell family. All 4 were deceased. On Tuesday, May 5th, HPD held a press briefing on the case. That briefing was live-streamed by local independent reporter Grizzly's Hood News, who was directed to the stream by HPD directly. At that briefing, HPD confirmed that 2 separate welfare check requests had been made, one by the children's babysitter and one by Thy's sister Thy Mai. HPD's official statement on the discovery read as follows. Evidence on scene indicated the incident was a murder-suicide in which the male shot the 3 victims and then shot himself. The Houston Police Department named Matthew Mitchell, 52, as the suspect. The Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences subsequently confirmed the official findings. Matthew Mitchell, 52, cause of death, self-inflicted gunshot wound, manner of death, suicide. Thy Mai Mitchell, 39, cause of death, gunshot wound to the head, manner of death, homicide. Maya Mitchell, 8, cause of death, gunshot wound to the head, manner of death, homicide. Maxwell Mitchell, 4, cause of death, gunshot wound to the head, manner of death, homicide. The official time of death, recorded for Thy, Maya, and Max was 6:11 in the evening on Monday, May 4th, 2026. Maya and Max were found in their beds. That detail is in the public record, confirmed across multiple sourced outlets. It is stated here once and will not be revisited. In the 6 months before May 4th, there had been 0 prior police calls to the Mitchell home. 0 legal filings of any kind in Harris County courts. No restraining orders. No domestic violence reports. No complaints. No prior incidents of any documented kind. The investigative record going into that house contained nothing. In the days that followed the discovery, flowers and photographs were placed outside the Mitchell residence on Kingston Street. 2 teddy bears appeared outside the front of the home with a handwritten note, "Our thoughts and prayers are with you." That same Monday evening, while HPD officers were working at Kingston Street, a group of Matthew's friends were sitting at a restaurant table waiting for him. He had dinner plans, Ordinary Monday evening plans with people who cared about him. They were waiting. He never came. He never called. One more item that belongs in the factual record of this chapter. In the days immediately following the discovery, multiple major news outlets, including Fox News, reported that Thy Mitchell was pregnant at the time of her death. That report spread widely and became part of the public narrative of the case. On May 20th, 2026, Thy's family issued their first and only official statement and corrected that directly. Their words: "The family would like to clarify that reports stating Thy Mai was pregnant are false. No law enforcement official has made such a statement, and no such information appears in the autopsy report. The pregnancy reports were false. That is the confirmed record. The investigation was active from the moment HPD entered that home. It remains active as of June 2026. No official motive has been released. No suicide note has been confirmed. Anyone with information relevant to this investigation is asked to contact HPD's Homicide Division at 713-300-83600. HPD's investigation into what happened inside 2113 Kingston Street on May 4, 2026 is ongoing. No official motive has been released. No note has been confirmed. What the investigation does have, and this matters, is interior footage from inside the Mitchell home. Thy's family confirmed in their May 20th statement that they turned over all home security camera recordings from inside the residence to HPD to assist the active inquiry. Whatever that footage shows, it is now in the hands of investigators and has not been made public. With no official motive on record, the public discussion of this case has produced a range of theories. Some are grounded in documented evidence. Some are consistent with behavioral patterns that investigators and mental health professionals have documented in similar cases. Some are speculation with no supporting evidence in the public record. What follows is an honest examination of each one. Every assessment in this section is clearly labeled. Confirmed means confirmed by an official source. Supported means consistent with available evidence but not officially verified. Unverified means reported but not confirmed. Speculative means no supporting evidence in the public record. Theory 1: Financial pressure. On the surface, the financial picture of the Mitchell household in early 2026 looked heavy. Traveler's Cart opened in October 2024 after a $235 million capital raise. Raised capital is also owed capital. That money carries repayment obligations. The Mitchell family held a $12 million mortgage on their River Oaks home. The restaurant industry across the country in 2025 and 2026 was under documented pressure. Rising food costs, rising labor costs, increasing insurance premiums, increasing rent. These are the operating conditions every restaurateur in America was navigating. But here is what the evidence on the ground actually shows. A restaurant industry source who knew the Mitchells closely told reporters directly that there was no indication financial pressures played a role in what happened. 2 months before May 4th, I was on public radio speaking with calm and forward focus about the industry's future. The Mitchells were developing a new World Cup menu in the weeks before the tragedy. You do not invest time and resources in new menu development if you believe your business is in serious financial trouble. The restaurants were fully operational. Staff were being paid. The doors were open. Assessment: the evidence does not support financial pressure as the primary motive. As a contributing stressor in the broader picture of Matthew's psychological state, it cannot be entirely ruled out. Pressure accumulates. But as the driver of what happened, the available record does not point there. Theory 2: severe depression. There is no confirmed diagnosis of any mental health condition for Matthew Mitchell. There is no documented treatment, no prescription record in the public domain, no paper trail of any kind that indicates he was seeking help for depression or any other condition. The public record contains nothing, but the absence of documentation in cases of severe depression, particularly in men, is itself clinically significant. Mental health professionals who study cases categorized as family annihilation, which is the clinical and investigative term for what HPD says occurred at 2113 Kingston Street, have documented a consistent pattern. The pattern involves a perpetrator who is experiencing a severe, untreated depressive episode, during which his perception of reality has become catastrophically distorted. In that distorted state, the act does not feel, from inside the crisis, like destruction. It feels like protection. That is not a rationalization of what happened. It is a documented clinical framework that investigators use to understand cases with these specific characteristics. Matthew Mitchell's profile fits precisely the description of someone whose depression would leave no visible trace. Zero social media. No public emotional record. A deeply private man who, by every account from every person around him, gave the people closest to him nothing to identify or name as distress. Stanton Bundy spent 5 years working next to him in a professional kitchen, one of the highest pressure working environments there is, and had nothing. Matthew's dinner friends were expecting him at the table that evening, and had no idea anything was wrong. Thay's Instagram showed warmth and laughter 10 days before the end. Assessment, supported. The behavioral profile is consistent with this pattern. It is the most analytically supported theory on the available evidence. It is not confirmed. Theory 3. Paranoia. Multiple news outlets reported, through unnamed sources described as close to the case, that Matthew had been experiencing paranoia in the period leading up to May 4th. That reporting has not been confirmed by HPD. It is not referenced in any official record. The Mitchell family has not addressed it in their official statement. Clinical paranoia is a different condition from depression, though the two can exist at the same time. Paranoia involves a fixed and intense conviction that danger is present and that others cannot perceive it. From the inside of a paranoid episode, the threat feels absolute and urgent. From the outside, the same person can appear simply quiet, withdrawn, or more intense than usual. Nothing that most people around them would identify as alarming or flag as a warning sign. 0 people who knew Matthew Mitchell have publicly described any behavior they would categorize as paranoid. Not Stanton Bundy. Not the friends waiting at dinner. Not anyone who spoke to media after the tragedy. Either the allegation is inaccurate, or whatever he was experiencing was entirely internal and left no observable trace in his external behavior. Assessment, unverified. This allegation cannot be confirmed or ruled out on the current public record. It should not be treated as established fact, but it cannot be dismissed. Theory 4. The career and identity transition. Matthew spent more than 14 years in pharmaceutical clinical research, a structured, institutional, process-controlled environment where predictability is a professional value. He then moved into the restaurant industry, one of the most financially volatile, operationally unpredictable, and emotionally demanding industries in existence. No guaranteed outcomes, no controlled processes, razor-thin margins that never fully resolve, relentless hours and constant emotional labor. These are two profoundly different psychological environments. For some people, leaving a controlled institutional career for a creative, chaotic, community-facing one is liberating. They find energy in the uncertainty. For others, it is quietly destabilizing in ways that do not manifest externally. The identity shift alone, from pharmaceutical CEO to restaurateur, is significant. How you are seen changes. How you measure your own success changes. What your day looks like, what failure looks like, what you are responsible for changes completely. Matthew appeared fully invested. He named every cocktail. He showed up to every event. He was a visible partner in everything they built together. But what was happening on the inside, he kept entirely to himself. Assessment, speculative. There is no direct evidence in the public record linking the career transition to what happened on May 4th. But the psychological dimensions of that transition have been largely ignored in the public coverage of this case, and they represent a legitimate and under-examined thread. Theory 5. The social media contrast. Thay's Instagram was active for years. Thousands of followers. Hundreds of comments on individual posts. Her public presence was warm, personal, and widely celebrated. Matthew had no social media of any kind. His entire public identity existed only through what Thy chose to share about him. Everything the world knew about Matthew Mitchell as a person, his warmth, his humor, his love story, it knew because Thy put it there, was a man who deliberately kept his entire interior life private, uncomfortable with his wife's very public and very celebrated online presence. There is no documented evidence of any conflict between them on this subject. No reported argument, no account from any friend or colleague of tension around Thay's public profile. The contrast is real, and it is worth acknowledging honestly. But the theory that this contrast was a source of conflict driving toward a motive is not supported by any evidence in the public record. Assessment, speculative only. The contrast exists. The conflict is not documented. Theory 6. The unknown variable. This is the theory that requires the most intellectual honesty, because it is the one that acknowledges the limits of what we currently know. The investigation is active. HPD has interior security camera footage from inside the Mitchell home. There may be financial information that has not surfaced in any public record. A hidden debt, an undisclosed loss, an investment gone wrong that investigators are examining right now. There may be a private medical diagnosis for Matthew, a neurological condition, an undisclosed illness, something that affected his perception of reality in ways that no one around him could see because he never told anyone. There may be something inside the marriage itself that existed entirely within the walls of that home on Kingston Street that the people closest to them had no window into. The sudden loss of Thy Mai's husband in February 2026 added a significant stressor to the Mitchell household 2 months before the tragedy. The family was already navigating fresh grief. Whether that grief affected Matthew, and in what way, is not something the public record can currently speak to. The family's official statement asked specifically for privacy, compassion, and accuracy in reporting as the investigation continues. The phrase accuracy in reporting is deliberate. It signals awareness that the public narrative is incomplete. The definitive answer to what happened in that house may come from the security footage. It may come from financial records investigators are working through. It may come from something no one discussing this case has yet thought to examine. Assessment: the record is incomplete. The investigation is ongoing. This chapter is not closed. If you have been watching this far, you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel is built for, someone who wants the full picture, the verified facts, and the honest analysis, not the simplified version. Subscribe to Viral Case Files right now. Every video on this channel is built to the same standard. Hit subscribe, hit the bell. You will not regret it. The news of what had happened inside the Mitchell home on Kingston Street reached Houston's restaurant community on Tuesday, May 5, 2026, the morning after HPD made the discovery. Thai's sister Thy Mai confirmed the deaths on Facebook that morning, posting photos of Thy, Maya, and Max and writing, "We are heartbroken to share that my sister Thy and her beloved children Maya and Max passed away last night. Our family is grieving deeply and asks for privacy during this incredibly difficult time." She did not mention the circumstances. She did not name who was responsible. She simply announced that they were gone, and she asked for space to grieve. What followed was immediate. Within hours, social media across Houston's hospitality industry began filling with tributes. Sandy Nguyen, co-owner of Saigon Hustle and Sunday Press in Northwest Houston, posted on Instagram. She was a force never defined by her petite frame, always commanding respect with her presence, her conviction, and her voice. A true leader in our industry, she moved with vision and purpose, unafraid to speak the truth while lifting those around her. She had that rare balance of honesty and heart. Lu Kibi Esras Risuan, the chef and owner of 3 Houston-area Thai restaurants, posted, "This woman was beautiful inside and out. She had a way of lifting people's spirits wherever she went. We started our journeys at almost the same time, chasing similar dreams. We shared the highs, the unbearable challenges, and the pressure that comes with building something from nothing." Ronnie Nguyen, co-owner of Roostar Vietnamese Grill, shared his own tribute. Photographer Kim Pham wrote a long tribute on Facebook, saying Thy was one of the first people who ever let me photograph her. Houston chef Lena Le said Thy made people feel seen, safe, and loved. South House PR, which represented both restaurants, released a statement that said, "Thy was not only a client, but a great friend. She was a devoted mother and businesswoman, and we are completely devastated and heartbroken a million times over again. If there was one thing about Thy, it was that she was always on her own journey, always looking for the next adventure, and we had a blast doing it together." Flowers and photographs appeared outside the Mitchell home on Kingston Street within days. 2 teddy bears were placed at the front of the house with a handwritten note. Emily Williams Knight, president and CEO of the Texas Restaurant Association, issued a formal statement on Wednesday, May 6. She said, "We stand with the greater Houston hospitality community as we try to process the horrific deaths of Thy Mitchell and her family. To say that Thy will be missed is an understatement. Travelers Table issued its own statement thanking the staff who had continued to show up and work through the tragedy, and asking the community for unity and respect as they navigated what the statement called an immense loss. The restaurants stayed open. Ryan Brown, director of operations, and the staff kept the doors open and kept serving. The statement read in part, "Hospitality comes from within, and to honor the traveler's legacy, we will continue to welcome you into our restaurants." On May 11, 2026, exactly 1 week after the discovery, Traveler's Cart on Montrose Boulevard opened its doors from 2 in the afternoon until 6 in the evening for a community vigil. It was open to staff past and present, to regular guests, and to anyone who wanted to come and pay their respects. The Houston Chronicle sent reporters. What they documented was this: photos of Thy and her children placed on a table, flowers arranged around them, candles lit in the parking lot outside. No speeches, no program, no formal structure. Just a space for people to gather, to move quietly through the room, to embrace, and to acknowledge what had been lost. Chef Nikki Tran was there. She was photographed embracing Ryan Brown, the man who had been holding the business together through the unimaginable. Tran told the Chronicle she had been looking forward to making the Saigon sunrise for Thy again. She had been planning it. She never got the chance. Angelique Gildas was there. Amber Farrell Steele was there. Ally Jarrett stood nearby and said there were just no words. Eric Sandler, the city editor at Culture Map Houston who had covered Traveler's Table from the beginning, reflected publicly on what Thy had meant to Houston's hospitality community. That she was never happier than when she was helping other people celebrate. The vigil announcement did spark a debate online that is worth addressing directly, because it is part of the honest record of this case. The gathering was announced as a vigil for the Mitchell family, a name that included Matthew alongside Thy and the children. Some people online objected to that. They argued that a man investigators say killed his wife and 2 children does not belong in the same memorial space as his victims. Others responded that Matthew's colleagues, people like Stanton Bundy, who had worked alongside him for 5 years and called him a great friend, were also grieving, that their grief was real. That complicated grief over someone who did something devastating is still genuine grief, even when it is hard to hold alongside the anger. There is no resolution to that debate. Both responses came from real people trying to process an event that does not fit the categories they had for understanding the world. The documentary names both honestly. It does not try to settle it, because it cannot be settled. What can be said plainly is this: the Houston restaurant community showed up. They showed up for these staff. They showed up for each other. And 1 week after a family was found dead in one of Houston's most prestigious neighborhoods, they stood in a parking lot with candles and said, "We remember her." On May 20, 2026, 16 days after Houston police walked through the front door of the Mitchell home on Kingston Street, the family of Thy Mai issued their first and only official public statement. It was posted to the social media account of her father, Thy Mai. The statement identified itself explicitly as the first and only official communication from the family of Thy Mai since the initial news reports. Everything before this, the tributes, the community statements, the media coverage, had been external to the immediate family. This was the family speaking directly, in their own words, for the first time. The statement addressed 5 separate matters, and it is worth covering each one clearly, because several of them changed what the public thought it knew about this case. The first thing the family addressed was the pregnancy reports. In the days immediately following May 4th, multiple major news outlets, including Fox News, reported that Thy was pregnant at the time of her death. That claim spread widely and became embedded in the public narrative of the case. The family statement was unambiguous. The family would like to clarify that reports stating Thy Mai was pregnant are false. No law enforcement official has made such a statement, and no such information appears in the autopsy report. This was not a correction of speculation. This was a direct correction of a specific, widely reported claim that had been presented by major outlets as established fact. The autopsy does not support it. The second thing the family addressed was the exact sequence of how the discovery was made. Earlier reporting had varied on the details of the welfare check. The family clarified the timeline precisely. The children's babysitter went to the school to pick up Max and Maya and discovered the children had never arrived that day. After repeated phone calls to the Mitchell home went unanswered, Thy's sister contacted 911, and requested a welfare check at the residence. The family confirmed. No family member, no friend, no individual of any kind entered the home before law enforcement arrived. The scene was exactly as HPD found it. The third item in the statement addressed the home security footage. The family confirmed that they had turned over all security camera recordings from inside the Mitchell residence to HPD to assist the active investigation. Interior footage from inside that home is now in investigators' possession. What it shows has not been made public. That footage may be central to any eventual official determination of motive. The fourth matter the statement addressed was the future of the businesses Thy built. Traveler's Table and Traveler's Cart were confirmed to be continuing normal operations. The staff who had shown up through the hardest days would keep the restaurants running. Foreign Fare, the travel fashion brand Thy had launched in 2023, would be temporarily paused while the family focused on funeral arrangements and grief. The statement said operations would resume at a later date in honor of Thy Mai and the passion she poured into it. The family also asked, formally, that Thy be remembered and referred to by her maiden name, Thy Mai, not Thy Mitchell, Thy Mai. The fifth and final part of the statement was about legacy, about what Thy's family chose to build from the grief. The family announced the creation of the Thy Mai Foundation, established in honor of Thy Mai, Maya, and Max. The foundation's stated mission, in its own words, created to turn grief into action, to fund programs, advocate for legislation, and build the community resources that keep women and children safe. The foundation carries Thy's spirit forward, fierce, protective, unwilling to look away. It was not named after a tragedy. It was built to prevent the next one. Separately, the Texas Restaurant Foundation and the Greater Houston chapter of the Texas Restaurant Association had established the Thy Mai, Maya and Max Memorial Hospitality Scholarship, named for all three of them. Thy, Maya, and Max. The scholarship was created to support future generations pursuing careers in the hospitality industry. It was a direct institutional response from the industry Thy had served, recognizing that the best way to honor her legacy was to invest in the next generation of people who would carry it forward. On May 24, 2026, 20 days after the discovery, the family hosted a tribute event at the Wortham Theater in Houston. The program ran from 10 in the morning until 12:30 in the afternoon, followed by a reception from 12:30 until 2:30. The family asked those who attended to donate to the Thy Mai Foundation in lieu of sending flowers. The family closed their statement with a direct request: privacy, compassion, and accuracy in reporting as the investigation continues. The investigation remains active. The family statement was the last official word from those closest to Thy Mai. Everything else, every question about motive, every unanswered detail, every piece of information that might eventually explain what happened in that house on May 4th, remains in the hands of HPD and the Harris County investigators working through the evidence they now possess. As of June 2026, the Houston Police Department's investigation into the events of May 4th remains active. No official motive has been released. No suicide note has been confirmed. The interior security footage from inside the Mitchell home is in investigators' possession. Whether the official findings, when they come, will answer the questions that everyone who followed this case has been asking, that is something the record cannot currently promise. Some cases are resolved fully. Some are resolved partially. Some remain open in ways that never fully close. What is certain is that the investigation is not finished, and the public record of this case is still being written. There are three things this case documents clearly, not as opinions, but as observable facts, that extend beyond the Mitchell family and speak to something broader. The first is this: the absence of a documented history is not the same as the absence of a crisis. In the 6 months before May 4th, there were 0 police calls to the Mitchell home, 0 legal filings in Harris County courts. No restraining orders, no domestic violence reports, no documented incidents of any kind. The systems that exist to identify and flag danger depend on evidence being reported, on behavior being visible, on someone calling for help, or someone else calling it in. What is kept entirely internal? What a person carries privately and presents to the world as ordinary, those systems cannot see. The Mitchell case is a direct illustration of that limit. The second is this: the most destructive crises are often the most invisible. Every person around Matthew Mitchell, his longtime professional colleague, his friends at the dinner table, his wife, whose public posts showed nothing but warmth, had nothing to work with, not because they were inattentive or careless, but because a sufficiently internalized crisis, managed by a sufficiently private person, leaves no external trace. It does not announce itself. It does not place calls for help. It builds in a space that no one around it can access. That is not a reassuring thing to say. But it is an accurate one, and accuracy matters more than reassurance in cases like this. The third is this. Pattern recognition is worth acting on. The babysitter who called 911 on May 4th did not have an articulable reason to be alarmed. She had no specific incident to report. She had no prior history of concern to point to. What she had was familiarity. She knew this family's rhythms. She knew their patterns. She knew that this specific silence, this length of silence, from these specific people, was not normal. She acted on that knowledge without waiting for documentation or official confirmation. That call did not prevent what had already happened, but it ended the period in which no one knew. And the lesson it carries is clear and direct. When something feels wrong about someone you love, you do not wait for proof. You act. Now let us end with who they were. Thy Mai Mitchell, 39 years old, born in Chicago, raised in Houston, daughter of a Vietnamese immigrant who built a career at NASA, granddaughter of a woman who ran a restaurant in Houston. She grew up working in that restaurant before she had a word for what she was learning. She earned a degree from the University of Houston while already working in the industry. She held a master's from Penn State. She led HR teams at Fortune 500 companies. She co-owned 2 award-winning restaurants and launched a fashion brand and served on a board and organized gift card swaps for other women's employees and did cartwheels in the street when the construction was done and appeared on public radio 2 months before her death to talk about the future. She was selected by her peers as Greater Houston Restaurateur of the Year. She was described by her industry as a ray of light. Maya Mitchell, 8 years old, a student at River Oaks Elementary School. She spent her last Sunday afternoon in a fitting room with her mother, picking out a dress, making sure her mother was taken care of too. Maxwell Mitchell, 4 years old, known as Max. Matthew Mitchell, 52 years old, Emory University, Oxford, London, Paris. Pharmaceutical CEO, culinary school graduate, the man who named every cocktail, a man who went all in at a Vietnamese family gathering in 2010 and kept showing up, a man whose longtime colleague called him a great friend and who, when he learned what happened, said he was questioning everything he thought he knew, including his faith. A man whose inner world remained entirely his own, to the very end. Traveler's table and traveler's cart are open. Ryan Brown and the staff are showing up every day and keeping the doors open and keeping the legacy of what they built alive in the most direct way possible, by continuing to do the work. The Thy Mai Foundation exists. The Thy Mai, Maya and Max Memorial Hospitality Scholarship is funding the next generation of people who will walk into kitchens and dining rooms and carry forward the belief that food connects people across every distance. And somewhere in Houston, Nikki Tran is still thinking about the Saigon sunrise. Emily Williams Knight said it plainly and she said it right. We will remember Thy as a ray of light. That is who she was. Subscribe to Viral Case Files if this story moved you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from? And what do you think the investigators will find? Every comment gets read. If you or someone you know is carrying something that feels too heavy to carry alone, reach out. Call or text 988. The Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Free, confidential, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you are in a situation at home that feels unsafe, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available at 1-800-799-7233. Stay safe out there.